Say please, yeah. They all just wanna be me, yeah, yeah, yeah. Five foreign thoughts crossing in my whole life. This was a plan, the greatest all time. We know you want it all, I'm bad, bro. We already want it all, I'm bad again. She said it rang true, but essentially, with this life, oh, it really meant for me.
I was like a cotillion, all set to escort a dead. Yeah, yeah. Cameras everywhere, and I never let it get to my head. Yeah. I was a cotillion, and she said she wanted another day instead. Said I'd take the spotlight again. I've been through way too many events.
Clutching each and every pearl in her little hands, just thinking make believe in another land. Brought her to the ball, bay, all eyes bright and glittery, paparazzi fluttering.
Welcome to Lab Grown. I'm gonna keep that in for sure. So, Mafuba, where are you from?
I'm originally from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. That's how usually like Puerto Rican artists will like say it in their OG accent usually. I'm from like a metro. I'm sort of like the last few years like I sort of lived in like a pseudo kind of rural suburbia, kind of like half and half. Most of Puerto Rico's like that, like unless you go to the hills, which is the weird part. The hills is where like all the mansions and shit is, but like the big cities, there's only like 2 or 3 big cities. It's such a tiny island, so like most of it is kind of like a mix of rural and like, you know, metro area. That's kind of like how I grew up, sort of like stuck at home and then going to the metro area to hang out with friends and then coming back home to the country, the countryside. But right now, though, like I'm situated in Orlando. That might change, but that's where I'm at.
All right. I have just like curiosity. How long did you have to go from like the country to the metro places? You know, how long was your commute?
Well, it's honestly from where I was, because I was already kind of in the center east or whatever, and most of like the cities are like in the northeast, so not a lot really. The island is very very short. Like if I wanted to visit a friend on the other end of the island, like on the very coast, it would take like 3 hours, whereas right now if I want to visit a friend of mine in Miami, it might take like 4 to 5, you know. So like from like where I was at to the metro area was really like 30 minutes, maybe 40. Just vibing. Saw a lot of movies. That was like the main thing. We didn't have a movie theater in my town, and my dad adored going to see movies. That was like his favorite, like his favorite pastime to do with family or whatever. So he took me to the movies all the time, and it was that was the thing. Like if my mom picked me up from school, because there was a time I was like in a different school in a different town. Like if she picked me up, I knew nothing was gonna happen. And that was really lame. But if my dad picked me up, I knew we were going to go see a movie every time. It was fire.
Oh. Do you still watch a lot of movies?
No, not anymore. I feel like the older I get, the more I kind of go like, I could be using this time to make music. I could be using this time to do something else, like time anxiety shit. So like I'm really more into watching series, because I'll be like, all right, I watched 2 episodes and I'm out for the day. I'll do something else. Very ADHD, like pick up and do a little bit of this and then do nothing, and then you like kind of we jump from one activity to the next a lot.
Do you think that's like a good influence on like your music, of being able to have like other things to just like cycle through in the meantime?
1000%. I feel like my favorite music growing up was things you could sort of pick up and go. You can listen to them at the beach, but also like at home, but also at the club, but also at a venue. Like stuff that has enough of an edge that more like core and hardcore people can enjoy, but also kind of like catchy enough that the layman can do. So like stuff that you could sort of enjoy in small bites, but also kind of get really immersed to. Like I love listening to full albums because I usually find like a lot of really cool gems that people don't talk about because they just know the single. But usually that's the vibe. Like when a band has a really good single, usually that means the album is fire. Like it's really sick. So that's sort of multifaceted. Like it's good in small chunks, but also good in like a big chunk. That I love that shit, and I feel like that is 100% like something that comes through because of my time anxiety a little bit, but also like kind of growing up with severe ADHD, but not being like diagnosed in time and not having, you know, people in my family, they care, you know what I mean? But they didn't really get it. A lot of people in like the early 2000s, they didn't get stuff that has to do with like mental health or whatever. So I can understand it. So I just grew up like that.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 27. My birthday was like, damn, like what, 2 weeks ago, actually. Yeah.
Oh, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So you're 2 years older than me. So like, yeah, definitely in that time, because I was the same way as like, you know, they just didn't know. They didn't know what to look for.
Yeah, they were like, nah, you're good. Nah, my kid's good. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, he's just weird. But he's cool.
And it was also like, there was the stigma too of like, you know, your kid has ADHD. Oh, you know, like they didn't want to be the parents with a kid with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not their fault. You know, that's the societal pressure that was on them.
Especially like in a Hispanic kind of population like Puerto Rico, where it's like we're Americans but also not, like we're kind of in a weird limbo state, where it's kind of like that Hispanic kind of vibe of like, oh, we're conflating any mental health issue with you're crazy, you know what I mean? So like nobody wanted to be the parent with a quote unquote crazy kid, and it was so dumb. It's looking back, it's so dumb. If there's something like, you probably have felt this way like growing up, right? Like now lately you're like, wow, parents are stupid. Like a lot of parents are so dumb, you know. I'm not saying my parents, I mean in general, like a lot of parents don't know what the fuck they're talking about or like what they're doing. Like they're just, you know, winging it. And that's fair. Just admit that you're winging it.
My parents, I feel like my parents were prepared. They've admitted they've winged it at some points. And, you know, as long as you're able to do that, you parented to your best of your ability, right?
Mm-hmm. You know, everybody has good intentions, you know. Well, most people, you know.
Most people, yeah. To get a little back on, well, actually, we're already talking about, you know, life outside of music for the most part. But what does life outside of music look for you? Like when you're not in the lab, what's mafuba doing? I
think this industry is like a very social industry. People don't want to talk about it. But when they talk about it, they'll kind of talk about it like it's like almost like a multi-level marketing scheme. Like, no, you need to get this amount of engagement. It's like, that's not exactly the truth. So like, I kind of see like my time away from music is also kind of music related. Like if I'm not making music, I'm talking to artists and vibing, you know, or going to shows or seeing what's new. Like it's always kind of a music thing. Or I'm sleeping or I'm going to work, which I call that like my second job. Like, oh, this is my fake job. My real job is music. My fake job pays the bills for now.
You know, anyone listening will be like, that's a good mentality though. I'm
just too obsessed with art. Like my life outside of it is like, how can I do cool shit that helps me with my art when I come back? I'm too obsessed. My bad.
No. So let's break into the talking about your music then. Like, so how would you describe your music? Specifically, how would you just describe your self-produced music?
I've thought about it a lot because usually my favorite artists struggle with that question, because my favorite artists are usually very like versatile people, right? Like bands and artists or whatever that can sort of transcend something but in their own style. Like I did it, so it's still me, so it doesn't matter what I made. That kind of vibe. So like my music, I would kind of call it more like outsider pop or like identity punk, and not in the punk's way, but more like in a ideology kind of style. Like I've been in indie circles. I've been in like EDM circles. I had a big EDM phase where I just made and produced like all sorts of electronic music from every style, underground, mainstream shit. When I was doing indie and garage stuff, it was like that too. But no matter where I went, I never felt like it really fit in any scene because I liked everything. I was too positive. I liked so much shit. And as an artist, like whenever somebody told me like, oh, keep doing this though, I'd be like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. Don't tell me what to do. And so like that's kind of the vibe. Like I would call it like outsider pop, you know, where like it doesn't really fit in anywhere neatly. And I used to think that was a bad thing, but now I think it's fire because like my favorite bands and people that I look up to, you can clearly see their identity in their music. That even if you put them next to people in their same scene, you still pick them out because they still sound like them. They're still doing it their own way. So that's why it's like the identity punk part. You know what I mean?
It makes sense in both the theory and also the application to your music as well.
Yeah, thank you. I hope it like pulls through because like that's the point. Like if you can replace me with someone else and you gave them the instructions of do this and it still sounds the same, then I didn't really do a good job. It has to sort of feel like only I could have done it. At least that's how I see it. Like I didn't try hard enough if it's easily replicable, you know?
That's a really important thing of being creative, honestly. It's like if someone else could replicate it, then did you really push your creative limits?
Mm-hmm. And again, like it probably sounds like a broken record at this point, but like my favorite bands and records are ones that like they're still catchy even if they're really like hardcore, you know, or like very underground inspired or very like, you know, polyrhythmic or whatever the fuck. Like it still sounds catchy because the person writing it really cares about that, and I really care about that sort of mix. Like I can do really underground shit, but I really want it to be fun to listen to and like enjoyable. At least when I write, that's kind of like what I have in mind.
How long have you been making music?
It's weird because the first thing I wanted to be when I think when I was like 4 was an animator. Like I loved cartoons. I was obsessed with cartoons and like all sorts of like visual art. And I didn't really pay attention to music that much. My dad would play a lot of cool records, but I wouldn't really pay attention to it as much. But he was the guy. He was, you know, the guy that goes to school and brings his guitar and like, you know, goes to parties.
Me in high school, yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So like my dad was that guy. He would literally like pick up chicks with his guitar or with comedy. He was also a comedian. That shit was funny. Like finding out, oh, my dad used to do stand up. That's crazy. Which kind of makes sense with my music. Like I don't take it too seriously sometimes. If you ever get to come down to Orlando or whatever and you get to see me at a show, like that's literally me. Like I'll just bust out like 100 jokes in between songs. Just stupid shit. I'll play a fully instrumental song and I'll be like, damn, you guys knew the words to that one? That's crazy.
Fuck, but that's really important to a stage presence. So like to know that you, even if people aren't laughing, they're still gonna think it's funny.
Well, yeah, because you know it took them off guard because like everybody's trying so hard to be cool and be interesting and like look at the silhouette and look at what I got on, like what I'm wearing, and you know look at how I demand stage presence. But really, like demanding stage presence is like acting like you own the place and just being yourself. And myself, I'm pretty silly and I'm always smiling and shit. So like when I have a mic, I'll usually like enjoy that and be like, hey, I'm up here and I'm having fun. Like I'm not gonna expect you to have fun at a show if I'm not having fun, you know? But basically like when I was 12, I kind of realized that like my dad really loved playing guitar like at parties, at like family gatherings all the time. Somebody would give him a guitar and like he would play hits from like the 80s and stuff that he loved. And like everybody in the room knew the songs except for me because I was a little kid. And so like I was just seeing how much fun it was to like everybody sing together, and like he would just like know exactly what to do and exactly what to sing. And he was like self-taught. So I was like, I want to do that. That sounds fun. And he was like, I'm not going to teach you because I learned the wrong way. and you could be better than me. So like, I'm gonna take you to like actual lessons. So I think since I was like 12, basically like playing guitar and like literally like listening to my iPod shuffle like on repeat, like trying to replicate everything I heard. You know.
So
My bad. My answer is like too long.
no, actually, so it was perfect. It was just like, and so this thing. So we're just had to do a little quick math.
Oh, I guess 15
So
years.
15, yeah, 15 years.
Yeah.
That's
But I started producing in high school. There was this guy that was really popular. I had just moved to a new school and I didn't know anyone. And I came from a school that was a private school that was like very specific, like very like this is a bilingual Christian school. And my parents were like, I guess we're a little religious, but we just want you to learn English and like to have a better education than what we had or whatever. So as soon as that school popped up, I was there. But like since it was so niche in the island or whatever, at one point there was like 80 students in the whole school. And that was like from kindergarten to like 12th grade. So like literally like I think the graduating class had like 5 people or something. It was crazy. So I finessed my way. I was like, honestly, like I hate this place, and also I was dating a girl in a different school. So I was like, you know, you guys should put me in public school. I think I think this is like not gonna help me when I go to college. Like I don't know anyone besides these like 10 people that I've been with for years. I kind of convinced them that way, and they were like, all right, cool. So they put me in this public school, and this guy was like the popular kid, and I hated him. He was so annoying. But like he DJ'd in every single school thing. He produced and did beats and stuff, and he wrote a lot of EDM stuff that was blowing up at the time. Like that was around Scary Monsters kind of blowing up. And I was just like, well, I really like Daft Punk. That was like the only sort of thing that I was really into. And I guess maybe Gorillaz. It was like very like electronic based and some stuff. Like when Demon Days came out, it was kind of a hybrid. So I was like, all right, cool. You know what? Like I'll teach you to play guitar if you teach me how to like DJ and produce. He was all right, cool. So he taught me for like a day or two, and then I just cracked like, I mean, I officially purchased FL Studio, and I just kind of became obsessed with it. Like I just want to get really good at this and recreate synths and like sample stuff and like whatever. And that's how like it started kind of shifting, like, oh, I don't need a band anymore, because I kept trying to get into bands and stuff. I don't need people to vibe with me. I can just make everything myself. So, you know, that's a lot easier. So I think like around 17 is when I really started shifting towards more computer-based stuff, you know?
so you got 10 years of production under your belt. That's a whole fucking decade. Are you aware?
Are you aware? That's so mean. Yeah, no, I forget.
That's badass.
Well, there's that, but also like I went to like an audio engineering like college after I graduated,
okay.
and it's technically like a real. Like, think about it like Full Sail Light. You know what I mean? You get like an associate's degree, and then like you could continue in Full Sail. Like you just have to like travel outside of the island or whatever, and you could continue it with your credits. But I was not interested. I was just like, well, I want to do everything myself in the box. I want to be able to do my own marketing and my own like art and my own everything, because I'm a social person with cool people, but until I know if you're cool or not, I have no clue how to interact with humans. So, and also like my grandpa was very much like a don't trust anybody type person. So like ever since I was a kid, I was kind of instilled with like the people will take advantage of you all the time. So I basically grew up kind of like, if I can do everything myself, I won't have to be in those situations ever. And so I was like, I'll learn a little bit of engineering so I can do my band stuff and my like solo career and whatever on my own. And then I'll do some animation work or whatever in an art school. And then I'll do like, I had a whole roadmap of I'll just learn everything. And then I ran out of money after the engineering school, so I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything else.
Well, you got like engineering done. Now you just need to find someone who knows how to animate, that wants to learn how to engineer.
True.
And you do a knowledge swap.
That'd be fire. No, I sort of did actually. Throughout the years, I've sort of been sponging up knowledge from editors I meet, or like graphic designers or whatever. I'm a very curious person. I'll ask you like, how'd you do this sound? How'd you get this mix? How'd you draw that? That's fire. And like, that's probably the best advice I can give any artist. Like, don't ever be too shy to ask questions. Like, constantly be annoying and ask people shit, because every artist loves talking about art. Every single artist loves talking about how they did shit. They just want someone to ask them. You know, if you ask me how I did anything, I'll be like, here you go. I'll give you a step by step. I love teaching people stuff and learning stuff. Every artist loves talking about art. So really ask people everything. And I've learned a little bit. Every artwork I've done has been usually just me alone, or a friend of mine and me, or, you know, stuff like that. And I've learned a lot by that way. And all my art school friends tell me, don't go to art school. That's such a waste.
So how long have you been making music as mafuba, and what came before mafuba, if there was anything?
I wrote a lot of like really terrible songs in junior high that oh my god, there's literally like notebooks filled with like the worst lyrics you've ever heard in your life. And nobody really cared. Again, like I never really felt like I fit in anywhere, like, and especially in Puerto Rico, that's very reggaeton and like, you know, trap inspired everything. It kind of takes center stage everywhere you go. I felt like, even though I like reggaeton, like I felt like nobody that was in those scenes cared enough to know what I was into. And then when electronic music started blowing up, I started this project called Braintree, because I love that name. I just saw it in a random Wikipedia or something. Like, it was a town. There's a town in England or around like Britain somewhere called Braintree. I was like, I love that fucking name. I love it so much. Like little names like that, I'll get like obsessed with. Names that you can write and read, and it just feels good to write and read. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's so cool. And so after that, I had another project, because I hated the name after a while. I was like, it's kind of corny. I want to make more cool shit. I changed it to OVNI, OVNII, which is like it's sort of like an extra I, but it's UFO in Spanish, basically. Objeto volador no identificado, which is like unidentified flying object, basically. Like that. It's literally UFO, but like in Spanish. And I just used that for a while, did a lot of hard bass stuff, and eventually I wanted to get back into making band music, because EDM started becoming too boxy, you know? Like, if you want to make dubstep, it has to be 145 to 150. The best keys are F sharp minor and E minor. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to make house music, you have to use these claps. Like, people were so specific about everything. And it really started souring the experience, where whenever I did anything different out of left field, people just hated it or completely glossed over it. And the turnout was really fast too, where it was kind of gross. You ever see like these comparison videos where the artist made like the same song 5 times? You know what I mean? It's like these electro house songs, but they're all the exact same arrangement, the exact same sounds, the exact same key. It's just in a different, like the notes are placed in a different spot. And like, I just noticed like, oh, this is literally just a template. Like, you need to have a build up that's like this. Your drops have to be this length, you know? And I was like, this is so lame. And I wanted to write more lyrics and stuff. And back in PR especially, people did not, they were like, I like your music when you write stuff, but like, it doesn't fit EDM, you know? It doesn't fit my beat. It doesn't fit that. Like, I'll give your lyrics to someone else to sing it. Your voice sounds too indie, you know?
Oof, too indie.
Yeah, it sounds too underground for my mainstream. You got underground on my mainstream, bro. And so eventually I said, all right, I'm just going to do a band called Mafuba. And that was the idea. Like, it was a band. And I even rehearsed, and I had some of my friends play bass and drums and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. This is where I'm going to write. And then I'll keep OVNI as like my production, like when I do beats for people or whatever. Like I was tired of the EDM scene. And eventually I gave up because I moved out to Orlando, and I said, all right, cool. If I move out here, it's going to be different. So let me just, let me see where I go with this. And I got really depressed for a bit. I kind of didn't make music for like a whole year. Well, I tried, but I never put anything out. And eventually a friend of mine was like, yo, have you heard the Vroom Vroom EP? You know what I mean? And then like Sophie blew my mind, you know? And then Thousand Gex came out and they were like, yo, listen, everything. Like listen to the whole record. It's amazing. And it blew my mind. I was like, these are people doing the little experiments at home that I did where I would play guitar and like sing on my beats and it didn't fit anywhere. These people were doing it out in the open and everybody loved it, and it made sense now to do what I was doing in my own little corner, like quiet. I was like, oh, I don't have to choose anymore. Fuck it. It is a hybrid project. Mafuba is both my band and my production. Like it's just me. It's more authentic. It's just organically what I want to write, what I want to make, and that's it. That's where Mafuba came from. That I've been making it since 2019, the late 2019. I remember I kind of started it, and you know, since then that's basically history, you know.
All right. And so what are three, let's go with 3 albums that influence Mafuba sonically?
That's crazy. I don't know, because like the goalpost changes every week, like every month, like whatever cool thing comes out that really feels exciting to me, I'll sort of chase that for the next song, and then something else will be like, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna do that for the next song. But I think sonically, through lines that I love, like fuzz distortion, very much like Smashing Pumpkin style stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and even newer bands like Remo Drive, they're really cool, like fuzz distortion stuff to make more catchy alt rock is cool, and emo. The first 2 OK Go albums are perfect sonically for me. OK Go's first 2 albums are perfection, like pop rock, indie rock, kind of like perfection. Like the guitar sounds, everything. First Impressions of Earth from The Strokes is also a big influence on my sound, like how everything sort of it's in its own pocket, but every song sort of, you can sort of see the influence of different bands from like the 70s to like the 2000s. It's crazy. I think the last one would be Thank You Happy Birthday from Cage the Elephant. It's mostly bands. It's not a lot of like EDM stuff or whatever, because like sonically it's that energy of bands that I love the most. Like, you know, you see so much identity in it.
Absolutely. And so being a one-person band, as thus creating that identity punk of like, it's just you, it's like just your identity, but you're doing everything. Yeah,
people like, even when people talk about Gex, they don't talk about them as rappers or DJs or fucking producers. They're like, it's a band, you know. It's, yeah, you know, Underscores is another like one girl band type vibe, you know. Death Grips is a band technically, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, a 3-person band. Definitely, like, absolutely. They're a trio. Mm-hmm. And it's that vibe. I literally everything I do with Mafuba, I treat it as a band. Like how I do live shows, sometimes I'll do like, I'll bring out a guitar and stuff. Like Tame Impala's a one-man band. Like, you know, Coconut Records, oh my god, Coconut Records is one guy. It's the guy who played Gideon, the last boss basically in Scott Pilgrim. He has a one-man band way before Tame Impala, one-man band called Coconut Records, and it's amazing. It's so good. But it's like, it's indie. It's very more like a lot more in the Postal Service type vibe. You know what I mean? You know, I want to redact. Wait. Give Up by Postal Service, another another album sonically that I adore. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, bands. Bands. Talk about bands. Yeah, that's what I love to talk about. Well, yeah. Honestly. Mafuba is basically a band to me. You know, for me, there's a few writers that I've literally studied. Like how they write literally like gives me so much euphoria to just read and sing and stuff. Julian Casablancas of the Strokes is probably one of my biggest writing inspirations. On top of him, there's a Café Tacuba singer that I was talking to prior to recording, Ruben, like amazing. Early like John Lennon stuff too, like late Beatles stage was super cool and experimental, like Nowhere Man style stuff, more emo stuff like that. The modern baseball guys are such good writers. I don't know how they can make something so compelling when they're literally writing about Facebook profiles or like texting someone on Twitter. Like how can they like make it so compelling? I do not understand, but it literally resonates so much with me. So like the way I write is like whatever band I really am in love with their writing at this point from one of those, just like whatever I'm channeling for this one song.
Is there any influence outside of music you think that you bring in lyrically?
I think the way I write is probably the most backwards way that most people write. Like people usually write like technically like a short poem, right? And then whatever, it has to fit right, it has to rhyme correctly, it has to, you know, whatever, and then they'll write melodies, right? At least that's how I imagine normal people do it. The way I write is more akin to maybe how Paul McCartney would write some stuff, or like even how like Oliver Tree. He will make a beat and then he'll loop it for like 9 hours and just record nonsense, just literally just nonsense for like 9 hours, and then he'll come back, choose his favorite little inflections he did, and then write words to that. Paul McCartney is similar to like he'll have a lot of songs where he'll be like, oh, yesterday was actually called scrambled eggs. Like he'll just be like scrambled eggs. Like he didn't have words to it. He's like, I'll add words later, you know, like this is just nonsense right now. And so I'll write like that. I'll write nonsense. I'll just loop it and do melodies forever. You know, like pick out my favorite ones, arrange that, and then start writing words to that. Sometimes a word will peer through in my brain when I'm freestyling. That's like, oh, that word is cool. I'll use that as the beginner of this, and then write to that. Sometimes I'll just keep editing it down. The more I go, the more I work on it until it sounds like proper, like it was on purpose.
How much time do you think you spend to write a song?
It depends, because since I produce everything myself or co-produce it, usually like I'm a touch and go kind of writer. Like I'll write 20 minutes today, and then I'll write 2 hours tomorrow, and then 45 minutes 3 days later. You know what I mean? Like I'll just keep coming back to it throughout the week. So depending on how ambitious I get with the song, like the most recent one I put out, that one took like a month to make, because I kept coming back and rearranging and rewriting and like adding new instruments and taking instruments out, and it just kept going like that. But when I'm just writing for someone else's feature, like when I'm featured somewhere else, it'll usually be a lot quicker than that, like 2 days maybe, you know?
When you're writing a feature, what is your process?
It's similar to how I write my own stuff, but with the added caveat that now I have somebody else's words to run off from, like to continue. So I'll sort of think like, okay, I want something that fits, that's a really good change up to what is going on, but it fits, but it also has to end in a way arrangement wise where like coming back to the chorus from the other person or the next verse or whatever also fits. I can't stand like, and this is a little like, it sounds a little mean, but I can't stand like artists that like just sort of punch in, do their thing, and they're done, like, you know, with their featured, and they just leave. It's like, no, you got to be like more, you have to make it fit. Like,
it's like, did you listen to the song?
Yeah, it's like, I think Amy mentioned it in the last podcast. Like I told her something along the lines of like, what does the song need? What is the song asking you to do for it? Like, the song already exists in the future for you. You're just trying to help it get to where it wants to be. What does this need that fits it, but also complements whoever's coming before me and after. Like, it has to fit and be a cool moment that when you're listening to it, it doesn't just sound like somebody just like wrote a random thing, recorded a random thing, and just put it on. It has to sound like, you know, identity. Like, my identity has to go through it and fit. You know what I mean? Like, how can I blend this person's identity and mine into one project, and it fits, and it's fire, and it's different? If you can just replace my verse with someone else's and the song stays the same, then why was I there, you know?
And I can name a couple songs and it's like, you take that feature out and they're like, the song might even be better.
or the feature is the only good thing about it. Like, yeah. But I really hate when like mainstream artists, you can tell when they get on a feature and it's just another paycheck, you know? Like, why are you here? You didn't make the song better. Why? What? It definitely lends to like the label sort of pushing people into songs just for marketing purposes and not because the song needed it, you know? When mafuba was started, I was meeting a lot of people in this website called Matter, that a lot of people in the scene met each other there, but everybody hates it and does not want to talk about it. And that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. I met a lot of people in Matter that would literally tell me like, I have like $2K that I can invest in you. We'll just buy you a feature with this one person. And I was just like, it makes sense that happens in the scene, but it still kind of shocked me. I was like, oh, right. This is just a business for a lot of these people. Like, give me $3K and I'll put you on my song. It's so lame. Which, by the way, I think the most beautiful thing about this era, right? Of the digital age is that sense of community that you can link up. Like, we're linking up right now. We're not in the same state, you know? We don't play in the same venues. We don't even make the same music, but we're linking up because of the power of the internet. You know?
Exactly. Though.
And I love that because people keep missing the point, like talking about playlists and, you know, placements and shit like that. It's like, bro, you can literally create your own brand from the bottom up with no money, as long as you are likable and cool and you keep pushing yourself and putting cool stuff out there and meeting other people like you and just creating that community. Right now, like, yeah, somebody can be like, yo, I'll invest in mafuba. I'll be like, I'm good. Like, you know, invest in me as in like, give me money so I don't have to go to work and I can just do my thing anyway. Like, invest in me so I can take that money and give it to people in my community to make better stuff together, you know? But if you don't focus on community, what are you doing? You're not building anything. Like, the community is the ones that push you up. Like, you know, like, anything I've ever gotten as mafuba has been thanks to meeting cool people and loving, you know, the love you get is the love you give, you know? And so Absolutely. Being a part of the community is like that. Like, literally just as a community, build up something cool from the ground up, and then nobody can take it down. You know, like, if an investor pulls out, so what? You know, you have your people, you have your homies, you have, you know, your fans that don't see you as just another number. You're Ivuka, you know what I mean? Like, they know you, they listen to your catalog, they think you're cool, they will support you even if you change genres right now because you're cool. And
because they're patrons and they're not investors, they're patrons.
Yeah, and they can get on your Discord and hang out with you and hear you make something that might blow up next week, but you saw them in the studio in the VC with you. Like, that stuff is so beautiful and so powerful. Like, literally the best part about making art is sharing it. There's no point in, like, you know, selling art is important for artists to survive, but that's not the goal. The goal is sharing it, you know?
So when you write a song, what's the goal?
Well, I think there's two main goals, right? The first one is to make something I haven't done before. Like, what's the point of doing the same thing I already did? I already did that, you know? My favorite artists, again, are bands that, like, I remember, and people clown on the Beatles, and I can understand. Like, I think in the internet age, when something gets big enough, like monumentally big, people just start shitting on it for no reason. Like they'll just find reasons to shit on it just because it's big enough, and I get it. Like eventually, Iva, when you and I like blow up, you're gonna see people shit on us for no reason just because we're too big.
Even if you just give off the energy that you could blow up, people get intimidated.
I think it's similar to what you were talking to me about. Like, I think this was prior to like recording. You were talking about the kind of the jealousy of like other people were able to sort of get over their anxiety to achieve something you want, so you kind of get like soured about it. It's probably that same vibe where it's like, well, this person, if I didn't have a job, I'd be there. You know, if I didn't have a 9 to 5 or to deal with my family, I'd be there. I should be there. And when I was in college, there was this professor that told me, if you're playing live, like you don't try to be perfect and sound amazing or whatever to impress artists. Like, impress the crowd. Like, there's no point in being super technical, because the artists in the crowd will all be like, I should be up there. They're not gonna be like, yo, like, look at this guy's technique. They're not gonna care about that. They're just gonna be like, this guy sucks, I should be up there. Like, think about the crowd. It's a long-winded way of saying, like, my dad was super into showing me bands and like weird stuff that he remembers when he was a kid. And so when he got an iPod, he just like lime-wired like as much random shit he could remember. And I would get Beatles songs, and there would be like one song from one album, 3 songs from another album, 1 song from the last album, like stuff like from all over the place, but never like a full record. So I would like cycle through them and be like, there's no way this is the same band. This is ridiculous. There's no way. The writing keeps changing. The sound keeps changing. The way they arrange shit keeps changing from song to song. I was like, this needs to be my job. I want this to be me. I think Paul McCartney literally said it in an interview. He's like, we already did this song, so the next song has to be completely different. And so that's the main goal when I write a new song. And then the other goal is to just complement what I've already done. So yeah, it's different, but it has to fit. Like, it has to be like, you can look at my catalog and be like, oh yeah, it makes sense, you know. Not because it's the same sound, but you can see a progression. I want to be able to look back, and everything I put out, I don't want to look back and be like, yeah, that was a dud. Like, no, that was a cool moment in time, and you can see a progression, and that's cool. And actually, no, I'm lying. Wait. We can scratch that second one. The second goal would have to be just like reaching new people that haven't heard my earlier stuff with something different and fresh every time. Maybe one extra person heard this that hadn't heard me before. Then I won. You know, I'm happy now. And I'm not trying to be the best in any field. I want to be the best me I can be. If every song I put out feels like me, then I already succeeded. And I don't, you know, I hope I can get to more people so that I can do this full time and keep creating forever. But like, the main goal is to always surprise myself, doing something different every time, and reach new people every time, basically. Okay, so I had this anecdote about when I was 4 years old, right? This was back when I didn't know I wanted to make music. I just wanted to be an animator. I would philosophize a lot. I was one of these kids in my own head where literally at 4, 5 years old, I would just be alone in the house while everybody's, you know, out working or whatever, just thinking about life and why does this happen? Why does that happen? And I could notice that like adults hated me asking them questions constantly. So I would just ask myself like, I wonder why this. And I remember thinking, how come every person in my family, every person in my friends' families, and the people like on TV and stuff hate their jobs? Literally 4 years old, I was like, I don't have a job, but if I have a job, will I eventually be bored and angry with it and hate it constantly and complain about it? And I was thinking, what could be the only job that I would want where it doesn't get boring? My brain as a 4-year-old was like, oh, I get it. you just get bored of a job after a while because you know what to expect. That was my 4-year-old brain going off. And I was like, well, think. What is the only job that wouldn't suck? I wouldn't get bored at? And maybe this was just me justifying that I wanted to doodle all day. But I was like, oh, an artist. Yeah, no, 100%. It would have to be an artist because you wouldn't get bored of doing things because everything you make is different than the last. There's like it was just a 4-year-old eureka moment of like, oh, yeah, no, this is the only thing that makes sense to me. And 23 years later, it's still the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't want to make anything else. I don't want to do anything else that's not art. Because literally, I would get bored and depressed out of my mind doing anything the same way every single time.
When I wanted to be a kid, I wanted to be a dog breeder. But I also want to front a boy band.
For real?
too.
Yo, that's fire.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a fireman because I liked a song about a kid wanting to be a fireman.
You're probably like a little bit behind me or ahead of me. I forgot. I'm at a minute 9, almost a minute 10.
A minute 9? You mean an hour 9?
Hour? No, a minute. We've only been talking for a minute.
Oh, because you started over? Wait a minute.
No, I'm just kidding.
You jerk.
Sorry. That's like one thing I do is I just lie.
Yo, I remember a friend of mine one time in college. It was like, hey, how come you never talk about your dad? And he just comes up with like, oh yeah, no, my dad fucking died in this war. It was crazy, and you know, his mom also died like in a car accident or some crazy stuff. You know, that's why I act the way I act. And I was like, really? He's like, no, but it sounds real, right? When I say it like that, it sounds so believable.
Mafuba, what do you have out now? What material is out at this juncture?
So the most recent thing that I've released is a song I have with Button Maker called I Need. It's out everywhere, obviously. I don't really have any like attachment to one streaming service. I just put it out everywhere. Yeah, that's where you can find it. It's out now. It came out on my birthday. I kind of wanted to make that like a thing. One day before 420, always. So everybody was like super high, just like vibing with it, and it was really fun.
Tell me a little bit about your back catalog. What else do you have out besides I Need?
Besides I Need, I've been very apprehensive about writing an EP because I didn't know an EP or a big project. Basically, I didn't know like what direction I wanted my sound to go. I just sort of been winging it. My back catalog is just singles. You know what I mean? Like it's only singles, and I think it's fun. Like it's a lot of work with the Gossip Boys, my collective. It's some things with just like friends here and there from back in Puerto Rico, like, you know, that I'll pull up for a song. Silly things with a lot of switch ups. I love big arrangements where that's a moment you can point out and be like, here's my favorite part of the song. What's your favorite part? You know, stuff like that is super fun. So any single that you pull out from my catalog, like you'll have like a different experience with that's not one-to-one, and I think that's fire. I like things to be loud, but I'm also not a perfectionist mixing wise, because I would just, if I would be a whole year just mixing one song, because I have a very big like choice paralysis. So with Mafuba, it's basically like, if it's good enough and it sounds fun and you can listen to it on repeat without cringing or being annoyed, then the mix is good enough. Like, it's good enough, it's fun, put it out. What's next? Yeah, I have like three songs that are not on my SoundCloud because they're like Goop House releases. Right. One of my favorite songs is Better Yet, that I wrote with Joshua Chi and Noah Wolf from Gossip Boys. And it's literally like the silliest, cutest, like, if Kirby was making like hyperpop, it would probably be that. It's really cute. It's not super fast, but it's fun. Like, maybe I think one of the songs that I took as biggest inspiration, because I could not get the melody out of my head, was it Big Kids from Jedwill? Was that the name of the song? I wanted something that had that same feeling of like it just goes immediately. It just goes as soon as you start it, and just fun like melodies.
How much material do you have stowed up? We talked about what you have out, but what's in the hard drive? What's under lock and key right now?
Okay, so you remember that I said earlier that like I'm really bad at. I take a long time to finish a project because I keep coming back to it with fresh eyes every few days. I'm very touch and go. I'll basically have like 9 songs every month that are almost done, but only one of them has to come out. So I'll be like, I'll keep working on this. Eventually it'll come out, but this is the main single right now. And so I have too many collab stuff going on, like a lot of like collabs and features, which I want to get out of the way because I want to get back to doing solo work again. When I was doing the live shows I did this year earlier, I was kind of like, I love these songs, but I need more solo stuff. And my catalog doesn't have enough solo work to carry like a show. So the plan right now is to finish my favorite songs that I have in my folder, my favorite ones that I feel like sound like me right now, that is the most solo centered, except maybe I Need might be there, and like put it all together into an EP that I might drop this summer, maybe, fingers crossed. But until that's done, I'm just gonna keep pumping out collabs here and there. I'm gonna be like, well, here's a silly thing, little sprinkles of like other songs that are just not good enough to be in an EP, in a big project. They're just not good enough, and that's fine. They don't have to be. So I'll be like working on a big project, and then little fun things that don't have to be perfect, don't have to be good, don't have to be like insane. They just got to be fun little moments. So that's probably what's going to happen this year.
What are 3 pieces of media that you would recommend to your listeners, your fans? Specifically, you're definitely, if you are listening to this podcast, you are a Mafuba fan.
If you weren't, yeah.
You should be by now. Good God, you haven't even heard the music yet, have you?
Please.
Have you, listener?
Please listen to the music, please.
Listen to the music. Now you have all the background. That's like reading the Wikipedia first.
Yeah. You need a prior lore training before coming in.
For the people that aren't going to turn this podcast off and listen to your music immediately, what should they be checking out? The ones that already have done their homework.
So I think there's some things from my friends that I would love to shout out. Listen to I Love Autotune from Nation. He's in my collective. Literally like one of the best like writers and most like I don't know how to explain. He has so much energy. One of the most energetic like rappers and writers I've ever met that also get really heartfelt. I can't believe he's in my collective. That is crazy to me. And so Nation's I Love Autotune came out in December, but it's still really good. And he's coming out with a few tapes this year. Some of them with me, some of them with other friends and stuff that are really fun. But before you hear those, check out I Love Autotune. It's perfect. It's just 3 songs, short songs. You will get obsessed with all of them, for real. Dynastics, like last single they put out was insane. And then it was called New Rainbows. But I've just been re-listening to the album they put out. Have you heard the album?
Oh, absolutely.
It's crazy. It's called I Know There's Something Left for You. That album is amazing. It's very much like, again, like my philosophy of like everything is fire. If you made it, it sounds like you. So like Dynastic will go through like post-hardcore emo work or whatever, and then just drop back into like more hyperpop styles, more like trappy stuff, do mergers.
Sometimes throughout like one song.
Mm-hmm. And that's the vibe. And it's like if it fits, if it sounds fire, then it's fire. Like this, it's identity punk, And then the other shout out I would give out, besides Amy's mixtape that's coming out. Amy was it Hell Street? Amy on Hell Street.
Amy on Hell Street.
Yeah, the second one.
Amy on Hell Street 2.
Can't wait. That album's gonna be insane. Coming out soon. Besides that, since it's not out yet, listen to anything Leslie 3K has put out this year. Literally, like every time I listen to Leslie's music, I'm like, this woman is a star. Like there's something in like how Leslie writes melodies and lyrics and produces is like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you can see influences from other people in her music, but it still just sounds like her. It's back to that, identity punk, outsider pop type vibe. Like it's her, and it's so beautiful. Everything she does is crazy. So like listen to Sleep, Play With Me, Pulling Strings came out recently. So good. So good.
I think we did it. We did it. We did the podcast.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So we can both hit stop.
Bet. All right, stopping it in 3, 2.